Hello, welcome to Local Anesthetic Podcast, your regular injection of mind-numbing local news. This is episode 357. As always, I am joined by Rob. How are you, Rob? You're looking like you still might be under the weather, but you did say you're always ill at the moment.
Do you know what? That cough was entirely unrelated. That wasn't looking for sympathy there. Yeah, I'm still not great, mate. I don't know. I just can't seem to shake whatever this is. Well, I know what it is. It's something that Lyra's given me from nursery. It's a bacterial infection, which, in my opinion, is probably worse than COVID was. Because it just seems to linger. I woke up the other day and it was literally like I've been eating glass. I've never had such a bad sore throat, so that was fun. Yeah, so that's progressing nicely. So far 2020 has been a bit of a shit start, to be honest.
2022, mate.
Yeah, so
you've just taken 2 years.
That's right, mate. I've completely forgotten about the whole pandemic thing. Yeah, I mean, Alex, let's not worry about that. Let's just crack on. Now, I just wanted to mention, do you remember we featured on the podcast a few years back? God, this is going to be fun. A few weeks back, we featured a website where you could go and enter in your hometown and it told you about the fatalities that you could expect if it were hit by a nuclear bomb.
Yes, by this point, mate, by the time this goes out, nuclear war could have already happened. We might not even be here. This episode might never be released. It might be found by another race of advanced people in, centuries to come or millennia to come. They find this and this is all that's left of humanity, and they have to try and piece together from Local Anesthetic Podcast what happened.
That'd be brilliant
to the world.
I'd love that. I mean,
they think it would all revolve around some mysterious man named Alan Ames and John Mooner.
I mean, if they were trying to piece together the history of humanity based on this podcast, they would probably see the decline quite quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so I was joking with a friend of mine about the whole, threat of nuclear war, and basically referred him to this website. And it seems the website has deactivated. The page is still live. You can still enter in your hometown, but apparently they've deactivated the fatalities and the injuries caused from a nuclear blast.
Is that them trying to be sensitive to people? This is when people would want to know, though, isn't it? This is when Rob, that day when Russia seized Chernobyl, I was typing into Google, if Chernobyl leaked again, would it reach UK? I was doing this. And I was reassured to find that in the original time that it mainly affected people like in North Wales and things like that. So typical sort of Tory mentality, I thought, I'm all right, Jack, don't need to worry.
I was about to say, because I think the nuclear particles did reach the UK. I mean, that's quite some way to travel. I mean, we're talking most of mainland Europe. But yeah, so I found it very entertaining, and I don't know whether it was an oversight on their part. I'm not entirely sure what happened, but it was it's all very bizarre. Alex, look, there was one piece of news I really want to feature. Now, this isn't from a listener. This is my own personal achievement.
Right.
At the age of 38, Alex, I have completed my POG collection.
POGs? I didn't know, but why wouldn't you have shared with me that you collected POGs? Number one.
Well, I mean, to say I collected them is probably a bit of an exaggeration. So, I was rummaging through an old box and I found my Pogs, which are original from 1994.
Right.
So, as you do, I went on the internet, had a look at exactly how long this, because there's 2 series I've got. I've got 3 series, but I'm not counting the last series. So I'm just doing the Wallington Series 1 and the Wallington Series 2. And I wanted to see how long the runs were for, so how many are in each series, and how many short I was. So and then I ordered the spares that I needed off eBay.
Well, Pogs a worldwide phenomenon?
They were, yeah, they were. So for people who don't know, Pogs were a trademark, but they're around the world. They're known as milk caps, which I'm assuming because they were the caps off milk at some stage, and people used to play with them because they were only cardboard. And I think that then Wallington's licensed the name from Pog. I mean, I don't know if people even remember what they were. They were big in sort of the mid '90s, and basically you get 6 in a pack with a slammer or a keynie.
It's all becoming very niche, Rob. Look, the question that everybody wants to know is, are they worth anything?
No.
See, that makes me worry about my my Star Wars pop collection. You do wonder when these things go. Were they ever worth anything, though? They were never like Pokemon cards, though, were they? In terms of...
No.
Right. So they were...
No, they are worth Absolutely. There are. I mean, so I've just completed Series 1, so I've got all 70 of the Pogs, and I've just ordered the 5 I'm missing from Series 2.
So why do you want to complete them? What are you going to do with them?
I mean, they'll become Lyra's inheritance, Alex.
Right. Okay. No, but I'm okay. Genuine question. Why did you want to complete them?
I think, but it's a sense of completion. I was too off completing them, so I just thought, for the sake of £2, which is how much it cost me. By the way,
where are they all? In a sock under the bed? I mean, where are they? Are they?
Well, I've
displayed them somewhere.
I bought a load of like little containers, so they're currently in number order in a little container in a drawer.
Okay, right. Look, Rob. Let's crack on.
You don't seem very happy about this, Alex. This is a big moment for me.
Rob,
it's the only thing I've achieved.
I'm incredibly happy.
Apart from my daughter and marriage.
I'm incredibly happy for you, Rob. Well done. No, I am. I'm. It's just a bit confusing, but because I didn't know anything about this. But you're a man full of surprises, Rob. Right? Let's get on with the podcast, right? I have a big announcement of my own, Rob. A big announcement, rather like the prodigal son. I'm telling you something now. That over the course of this episode of LA Podcast 357. And the next Patreon episode, which is exclusively for our Patreon members, and thank you for all the new people who've signed up recently as well. We really appreciate that.
Yep.
So LA Podcast and Extra Jab, which will be episode 18, I think.
Yes.
So over this episode and the next LA Podcast Patreon episode, I am returning home, Rob, to local news. All my stories will be from local papers about local news. We're returning, Rob, to where this started, where LA Podcast started. I'm returning home.
Right. Is this because you start to feel guilty because, as you more or less alluded to on the last episode, you'd kind of given up on local news altogether?
I think it is a bit that. And I thought, do you know what, Alex? We're specialists in this. Let's dip your toe back in. And it took me a long time to find stuff because, as we know, there's not a lot out there. But I'm happy. So if you want to hear all that, you need to listen to this and you need to sign up to Patreon so you can listen to the next Patreon episode, LA Podcast and Extra Jab, episode 18. Because these stories are fantastic, Rob. This really will be a report, in many ways, Rob, on modern Britain, in all its facets.
Right, great.
I'm going to start, Rob.
Okay.
And now it's going to feel like I'm going to break completely with everything I've just said, because I'm now going to talk about Ukraine. But I'm not breaking, Rob, because this is from the Birmingham Mail.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. Birmingham Live. Birmingham Live, by David Bentley, who is a content writer, and it's by John Bett. They don't say what he is. And it was printed on the 26th of February, 2022. And the headline is, Rob, Ukraine, in quote, still safer than Birmingham, says disaster tourist who went to war zone for fun.
Okay.
Yes. Comments. What do you know? Disaster tourism. What do you know about it, Rob? You're a man of the world. Tell us.
I mean, it's a term I've heard of fleetingly. It's people that deliberately go to war zones, I believe, and places that are maybe in the midst of a civil war or possibly like a coup d'état. I think that It's like Alex. It's the same as people who go rock climb without ropes. And what I mean is,
I agree.
Dicks.
A Birmingham student who has travelled to Ukraine amid the Russian invasion says it still feels safer than being back home. Miles Routledge is a self-confessed disaster tourist who likes to explore, in quotes, the worst places in the world. But astonishingly...
Why?
Astonishingly, he has concluded this is still safer than London or Birmingham, to be fair. I'm from Birmingham, so I'm qualified to say this. That is a ridiculous statement to make. That is absolutely ridiculous statement. I don't know about Birmingham, but to argue that being in Ukraine at the moment...
It's also quite offensive, I find. Because I mean, I don't know. I haven't visited Birmingham for many years, but the threat of being hit by a shell in London is quite low at the moment. And I don't think Londoners have been handed weapons, on a day-to-day basis to defend their country. So what the fuck is he talking about?
The whole notion of disaster tourism is offensive, isn't it? It's like that kind of colonial safari trip, but times 1 billion.
Absolutely.
Let's go and watch. It's just unbelievable. And do you know what's even worse, Rob? It's also exploiting the situation. The Loughborough University undergraduate shared news of his trip on Twitter. and said that the journey he took from Poland to Kiev as part of the trip was a bargain at £6.
But I think you have to ask or at least question his motivations for doing it. I mean, is it because he has a genuine interest in the situation, or is it because, he's going to get a few more likes on Instagram?
Well, exactly. Well, Rob, he previously visited Chernobyl in 2019 and 2021.
No, but see, no, I understand that. I see.
Yeah, I would go. I would happily go to Chernobyl with you, Rob.
Yeah.
I would. That's the kind of thing we'd enjoy together, because when you and I worked together, and Rob and I used to work in this office building, and we used to explore the parts of the building that nobody else ever used to go to, including a very bizarre underground basement part and the roof of the building. That underground basement was like wandering around a nuclear reactor. But I mean, there was all kind of weird shit there.
Oh, gotcha.
That was what Rob and I did for fun. There was nothing sexual about it. Okay, so
I mean, also we should have been working at the time, but Chernobyl and the town of Pripyat. There is a fascination there. Strangely,
I'm always drawn to the idea of exploring sort of derelict buildings, like old derelict hospitals.
Yes.
Yeah. So, right. This is
again. There's something, but Alex, I feel that's slightly different. The fact that they are abandoned, whatever tragedy has befallen them has already taken place. You're not there in the midst of it.
No.
Actually, whilst people are. I mean, in Ukraine, let's be honest, while people are suffering.
Well, exactly. Well, just to repeat, Rob, because it escalates this. He previously visited Chernobyl in 2019, and in 2021, he was evacuated out of Kabul after, in quotes, an insane Afghanistan holiday, which should be an episode title.
Good episode title.
So he is a complete and utter. By the way, I love the fact that I read a while back that the Taliban had come out and asked for the Ukraine-Russian conflict to be resolved peacefully. The Taliban issued a statement, said they expected it to be. Yeah, they said that their demand was so that it is. Anyway, listen.
Also, how does that affect them in the slightest? Just out of interest.
Well, it's not. Anyway, this time, this guy, he's back in Ukraine, currently a few kilometers from the front lines in the capital Kiev, and in quotes, listening to 80s music. This man's a sociopath, isn't he, Rob?
Is this man just born in the wrong decade? Is there something that he maybe just longs for the Soviet Union, Alex?
No, Rob, listen, he's a sociopath. Listen to this. Miles appears to have started his journey on Friday, February 25th, when he tweeted, "It's official, Tintin goes to Ukraine. He's on the train." Since then, he shared a series of messages about his plans and how his journey is going. He wrote, "When I get settled in a hostel in Ukraine's capital, I'll do a live stream on my YouTube. I'll announce the time tomorrow, possibly the day afterwards.
There we go.
I know where the armory is. I have an emergency satellite device I can tweet from. If I tweet the activation word, Ronald McDonald, assume the worst and airstrike my coordinates." I've got there's a picture of him here, Rob, with a very big gun, sort of with lots of things around him. Like he's got like a makeshift fort to protect himself. That's him in Kabul. Yeah, he's just on the kind of roadside with lots of sort of bric-a-brac around him to protect him and a large gun. And he's smiling for the camera. He looks like, I don't know, late 20s, early 30s.
Alex, does he refer to himself as Tintin?
Apparently so.
Right.
He also shared an image of himself in a military uniform and wearing a mask of Putin's face. He wrote last week when I was in Donetsk, Ukraine, I befriended some soldiers, got a free uniform, wore a Putin mask, yelling at the Russians, and went to an abandoned old Air Force base. Getting into Ukraine by train involved no bag or on-person scan. Didn't check my non-existent PCR either. I identified several areas where something could be smuggled in, open wall compartments, taking screws off, etc. It's a really bad situation waiting to happen, sadly. He then went on to ask for his fans to donate money to his cause, adding, "I'm going to help with buying local supplies. If you want to contribute to that cause or help me pay for accommodation, please specify and thank you. So I've got veteran mates setting up field hospitals and safe houses in case of full occupation. They're fixing up locals and soldiers. This is still safer than London or Birmingham, to be fair. I'm from Birmingham, so I'm qualified to say this." Speaking previously to the student newspaper The Tab, Miles explained his motivation. This is what you wanted to know, Rob. Are you ready?
Okay, go on.
He says, in quotes, "It's honestly fun. Almost like a soldier enjoying it despite what's going on. I'm not worried. If I die, then it's no longer an issue. If I'm alive, then I'm in the green. If the country gets invaded, I'm getting the content and leaving through a neighbouring country or a last-minute flight out. I'm bringing a good chunk of change for charity work, and I think just doing that is worth it. No matter what happens, I'll sort out the situation with myself and my followers." Does that clear things up, Rob?
Yeah, it does, Alex. I know. Do you know what? I've completely changed my perception of this man. It's quite clear from that statement. He's just an arsehole.
There are comments, Rob, A concerned Birmingham says there are no bombs in Brum or genocide, which is reassuring to hear. But Big Monk 4 does reply to that, says, well, there's plenty of everything else. It's a dump. Have you been to Birmingham, Rob?
Okay.
Have you been to Birmingham?
Yeah, a few times, yeah.
Right. Liked it?
I mean, it's been. I'll be honest, Alex. I mean, first of all, it's not my first choice of holiday destinations, and I think the last time was. Yeah, it's been a while. I think we went to Cadbury's World, which I'll be honest, Alex. This may be controversial. It was a letdown, but
was that pre or post the takeover of Cadbury's by Kraft?
It would have been actually. I think it was post. Yeah, because I think the do you know what? I think I had this idealized image of all these like.
You thought it was going to be like Willy Wonka's, didn't you, Rob? You thought you were going to get to meet Willy Wonka.
No, not like that, but. Like you know, you see these like these pictures of like the industrious factories of the north. So you imagine like all these like conveyor belts of chocolates being weighted over by white, people in white. What would you call them? Tabards? I don't know. But basically, they pick out all the chocolates that maybe may not meet their quality standards, and it's all automated, Alex. It's just machines.
Yeah, sad, Rob. Sad. And a chilling premonition for the future as well, what will happen to human workers, of course. Let me read out another comment. Rez Nyan says, I cannot fathom the level of sheer idiocy required to do what he's doing, especially as he already cost tens of thousands of pounds to the taxpayer by needing to be rescued in the past. Oh
my God.
I don't wish him any harm, of course, but I will read his impending obituary with great interest. Loughborough University needs to seriously consider whether they want such a dangerous and ignorant person associated with them. Rob, there are 50 comments on this. We could go on and on, but I fear we need to move on. So that's my first story, Rob, as we traverse the length and breadth of Britain, as I said, reporting on the modern state of what's going on here.
Yep.
Let's now go to Nottingham. This is from the Nottingham Post, Rob. It's by Joseph Locker. It really is a story where we're really segueing here, Rob, from a story about one idiot to another idiot, I feel.
Right.
And we're moving from the city of Birmingham, to the area known as Bingham, which I don't know if you're familiar with, Rob. Familiar with Bingham?
I don't know. That's new to me, Alex.
Right. So, 26th of February, Joseph Locker, headline... Bingham man recalls moment his home almost went up in flames after man cave caught fire.
Right, okay, great.
A man has recalled the moment he arrived home to see smoke rising from his home, in quotes, as high as a plane, before firefighters managed to control the blaze. Alan Stark.
Jesus.
Yeah, I know. Alan Stark, who has lived in Nursery Road, Bingham, for 45 years, that's a long time, Rob, said he received a call from a distressed neighbour saying his shed was on fire. That would be quite the call to get, wouldn't it? You're at work or you're out somewhere and you get a call telling you your shed's on fire.
Yeah, that's one of those things that's just like, because in that situation I wouldn't be sure if I should be rushing home first or calling the fire brigade first.
Well, also I'd be asking him I'd be saying, have you called 999? If they say no, that's a conversation for another day. I'd also want to know, when you say it's on fire, do you mean like there's a few small flames licking at the bottom? Or is it a raging inferno, or somewhere in between? What are we talking here?
Yeah, you say you basically you're asking to get, you give him a scale. You say 1 match, 2 10 tower and inferno. Like the film. On that scale, what are we talking here?
Well, yeah, because it would also influence my decision making. Let's go through this, Rob. If it's small flames licking at the bottom or just smoke emanating from it, and the early stages of a fire, I might be that would tempt me to want to rush back, resolve the situation, rescue the shed, or what? Because he's saying this is his man cave, right? We don't know what's in there, Rob. Right? There could be anything in it, Rob. There could be all kinds of incriminating things in there, right?
So maybe if that's the case, Alex, he may want it to go up.
Well, look, we'll get on to that, Rob.
Alex, I think what the listeners want me to ask is there a point where you just think, actually, do you know what? I just asked a neighbour if he's got a hose and if he can put it out.
Yeah, all that. He was meeting friends at a cafe just under 4 miles away in Screverton and rushed home to find his shed was ablaze. The flames eventually spread to his house, with the heat and explosions from gas canisters and aerosols blowing out his kitchen windows before further spreading to his neighbour's home. So the poor neighbour, Rob, who called him in a distressed state, has now been impacted by this because it spread to his house.
Alex, do you have any gas canisters in your home? Because I'm pretty sure, actually I do have a gas canister, but it is in the shed.
I sleep on a bed of them.
Right, okay. Yeah, but that's because you're a inflatable mattress, isn't it? You know, it's constantly pumping gas into it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a fire hazard, without a doubt.
So, if the fire service had been 5 minutes longer, I would have been in a hotel, Mr. Stark says. I'm a bloke who needs... this is his quote. I'm a bloke who needs his shed. It had hundreds of pounds worth of power tools in it, welding tools, engine oils, all up in flames. It meant everything to me. You could see the smoke when I arrived. The fire service wasn't there. It was as high as a plane. I got out of my car and I thought, oh my God.
How much time does this man spend in his shed? Because I'm assuming it's too long.
It's a wank den, Rob.
just caressing his power tools, maybe rubbing his belt sander on his cock, that kind of thing.
His wife, who's amusingly to me called Pat Stark, said...
That's quite amusing. I don't know why, but it is.
Pat Stark, yeah. We've never had anything like this before. That was his man cave. But for me, it's all my plants. Cannabis?
So are we saying this shed...
I mean, it is Nottingham.
So are we saying this shed doubles up as a conservatory? So is she growing plants in there? So it's plants on one side and power tools on the other?
I think so. I told you before, didn't I, Rob, that there are certain areas of Britain I have a very... let me tell you something about myself you might not know, Rob. Let's go off on a tangent. So when I was young, I was really into that whole Warhammer and Games Workshops.
Yeah, I think you've mentioned this once before on the podcast, which came as a shock, and I don't know why.
But I never played the role play with anybody. I just like collecting the figures and painting them. But I loved that image of that kind of, whether you describe it as a sort of Lord of the Rings or a kind of whatever you want to describe it as, but not really talking about ancient England, that kind of idea of that kind of woodland, and that there might be orcs hiding around a tree and all that kind of stuff. And the reason I'm saying this is that I always had this quite romanticised view of certain areas of Britain for whatever reason. So always whenever I thought of Nottingham, I always thought of Sherwood Forest and the Sheriff of Nottingham, because I love woods, I love trees, you know that, Rob, and I'm sure it's got plenty of that. But all of that kind of just splurged, all of that kind of just congealed in my mind of this area of Nottingham of all being like that. And when I actually went into Google and put in Nottingham and looked at pictures of Nottingham town centre, it wasn't what I expected, Rob. It wasn't little woodland critters running around and orcs and elves and people with swords and having a cup of hot brew around the campfire. It wasn't that, Rob. It was very different.
No. Well, yeah, that's I mean, it's very difficult to dispel this image, which is completely fantastical and made up in your own head into the reality. I mean, Nottingham is a fine city, but granted, it doesn't have any sort of elven folk, for example.
No, well, or maybe it
might do.
A bit of inbreeding, I think.
Below the surface,
it's an inbreeding scene.
Yeah.
Mr. Stark says, Rob, he must now make a claim on his insurance for the first time in his life. Comments. Come on, Rob. I'm not finishing the article, but do you want to say anything about that statement that he's chosen to mention this? I repeat, Mr. Stark says he must now make a claim on his insurance for the first time in his life. Honest Gov.
Yeah, that sounds like he's made a lot of suspicious or fraudulent claims in the past under various, a whole set of different pseudonyms.
No, to me, it made me think: is this shed going up in flames a coincidence? Is it an accident?
Good point. I mean, it's very convenient that he was far enough away from the house for it to take some time to get back. So
but
he was
near
at a
enough
cafe
that
4 miles down the road. Yeah, but near enough to make it home. So it seems convenient enough. So he could have started the fire, gone to meet some friends for a cup of tea. Fake the shock with the friends. Oh no, my shed's on fire! I've got to go. I'm sorry, guys. So he's got witnesses to the events. He's obviously his neighbours now inadvertently part of it as well. It is convenient, Alex. Yeah,
you're right. And Rob, I believe in serendipity. And the cafe, it says that the cafe that he was in was called the Insurance Job. So coincidence. He added that the fire service believed the fire may have started due to faulty electrical items in the shed. That's a shame, Rob.
Right. I just imagine, I don't know why, I just imagine there's one plug socket and it's got 15 different appliances plugged into it.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Just like, there's just this hodgepodge of various different multi-way plugs.
There are many comments, but I'm going to read them all out because I enjoyed them. Ford10HH says, knobhead of the week. Which is a bit harsh.
But yeah.
Ratbog says, his poor Wendy house. Which is, again, Nottingham.
Wow, sympathetic.
Nottingham Quadruple 4 says, is this man all there? Roll said, the flames may be as high as a plane, but it depends whether it's taking off or landing, but I'm sure it wasn't 36,000 feet high. Good point.
That's a good point, yeah. That's a very good point.
Okay, Rob, have you got some stories for us?
Yes, my first story is from Metro, as we've covered before, the Metro News Reporter, because they just have bots writing the paper now. It is from the 26th of February. And the headline is, Burglar's cheesy protest after breaking into home and smearing kitchen with cheddar.
At least it wasn't, Rob, knob cheese.
His own shit, yes. Are we just going to allude to that, not actually say it out loud?
What? Well, no, I think you didn't hear me. I think we spoke over each other. I actually did say what I said. At least it wasn't knob cheese. Sorry.
Right.
Which is a disgusting thing to say, really, and very immature and puerile.
I enjoyed it, but I mean, Alex, no one wants their kitchen smeared with shit or knob cheese. Just made that absolutely clear. There's an image. Hopefully you're not.
Why would you break into a house and smear? Why would you break into a house and smear the kitchen with cheddar? It's a very unusual thing to do.
Also, of all the cheeses, cheddar isn't the easiest one to smear. I mean, if you have like Dairy, that's a smearable cheese, Alex. What's your favourite smearable cheese?
Yeah, do write in. Let us know.
Yeah. So a man has been jailed after breaking into a house and performing a cheesy protest. Ian Masters, 33, forced open a bathroom door in Southampton in the middle of the day when the people who lived there were out. He rifled through their belongings and took a Nintendo Switch, a laptop and a bank letter. Apparently, because I suppose they had their details on. He also smashed an internal door with a brick that was later found to have his fingerprints on it, placing him at the scene. Alex, we're not talking about a master criminal here.
I didn't know a brick would pick up fingerprints. Okay.
No, that's surprising. I think it's because it's quite a coarse texture. I would have thought, yeah, anyway. But perhaps most bizarrely in his crime spree was when he took some cheese from the fridge and smeared the work surfaces.
Is that his calling card then? You know,
maybe
the cheddar bandit. The cheddar bandit.
Could be. A police spokesman said Masters was sentenced for 2 years in prison at Portsmouth Crown Court. He had previously admitted 2 counts of burglary and fraud by false representation. An internal kitchen door was smashed with a brick, and he proceeded to smear cheese on the kitchen surfaces and stole bank letters, a laptop. I mean, it's basically repeating exactly what the story said.
But why did he smear cheese? We've got to get in this man's head. Why?
No, that's it. Alex.
Why would you do that? Why would you do that? That's it.
There's nothing else.
Okay, all right.
It doesn't say it's on drugs. He wasn't. We don't know him. It might have been under the influence of alcohol, but no, he just felt, Alex, he's going to have a bit of fun. And what's wrong with that? If you're going to break someone's house, why not have fun with some cheese?
You're right, Rob.
Yeah. My next story is from it's our ubiquitous story from the Mirror. Ubiquitous. I don't think.
I'm not sure that's the right word in this context either. But
no, what did I mean? I didn't mean.
Well, you meant obligatory. We always have it. We think
obligatory. Thank you. That's what I meant to say. I was about to say that's not the right context for that word. Anyway, right.
I didn't want to pick you up on it because I didn't want to sound patronising.
I mean, Alex, you've sounded patronising to me on this podcast many a time, so I don't know
exactly. I'm trying to change, Rob.
Oh, thank you. It's appreciated. So
that Rob, yeah, Rob, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thanks, Alex. It is noted. I'll give you that. We need to talk about an issue that's I think actually might be on our last Patreon episode. There's been a real problem in this country.
Herpes.
That is becoming more and more prolific.
Herpes?
And that is the disposal of sex toys.
Oh, right.
Most prominent is the disposal of sex dolls. that keep turning up. It's rubbish. I'm sure it was the last Patreon episode where
Anybody who hasn't listened to the last Patreon episode or isn't a Patreon member, go to patreon.com/LAPodcast extra, sign up, become a member. There's so many episodes on there already. It was, I think, the last episode of LA Extra where we had an incredible story about a man who disposed of this sex doll in the woods. People thought it was a real body. We had a great time covering that story. Well, if you've got... Yeah. And there was that... Remember there was that guy... I loved that story we had however many months ago of that guy who, Rob... Who's do you remember he was in the process of moving and his parents found these huge boxes full of sex toys and they threw them out and he food them for a lot of money. Oh, that was it. Vintage porn collection. That was it. He said it was his vintage porn collection and sex toys.
Which just again boggles the mind. Anyway, Alex, look, this is very much along the same sort of lines as this. It's by Douglas Patient, which is a good name.
It is.
It doesn't say what his title is. It's from the 10th of February. Man races to save woman washed up on beach, only to discover it's a headless sex doll.
Oh, so fuck it again. I mean, this is incredible, Rob. Was the other one? Yes. The other story was in the United States, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure.
Where
was this?
This is in Portland, Dorset.
Dorset, really?
Yeah.
I mean, my parents live down in Dorset,
I don't think they're to blame for this, Alex.
They often get stories down there about real people washing up on the beach. It's got a lot of you get the odd murder down there. My dad walks the dog, twice a day, and he's always telling me, his great ambition is to discover a dead body. I
thought you were about to say he always comes across corpses lying on the beach.
No, his great ambition is to discover a dead body. He's always disappointed that it's never him that comes across it. I don't know if he's joking or not.
That's concerning. I'll be honest about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, look. So a pensioner had the shock of his life when he raced to save a woman washed up on the beach, but discovered a human-size headless sex doll. Chris Ford, 67, was looking for driftwood after a recent storm. Again, a lovely bit of detail.
That's like the man who who had a whole potato in his bag of crisps and discovered it while he was watching deer have sex out of his window. I mean, it's not quite as good, but there's still something evocative about going out looking for driftwood. I'd like to spend the weekend going out looking for driftwood, Rob. We'll do it together, and then we'll retreat into the forest with the elves, as we said. And
then jump on a plane to Chernobyl.
Yeah, exactly. I reckon we could get a pretty cheap deal to go there at the moment.
Yeah, I'd probably give it a couple of months first, but
yeah.
Also, I like the fact he was looking for driftwood after a recent storm. When he came across the mutilated silicone female body with, in quotes, all her bits on show, which he found laying down.
God, it's horrendous. It's like the opening scene of Twin Peaks where they find Laura Palmer washed on the shores, washed up on the shore, wrapped in plastic. God.
Yeah. The retired photographer said he always feared he would discover a human body during one of his regular sweeps. Is this your dad?
It could be. Yeah, it could be him.
Yeah. He was relieved to discover the victim was a sex doll.
My dad also often does go out looking for driftwood. So,
okay.
No, he doesn't really. I don't know. Rob? What is driftwood? Travis sung about it, obviously, but what is it?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Well, I think driftwood is just wood that's obviously from like a. Sorry, I've just had a news alert, which is completely spurious, but I quite enjoyed it. But apparently, Vladimir Putin has been suspended by the International Judo Federation. Great. What a fantastic alert.
Sorry, this will show you how far we're recording in advance. At the moment, it's because Rob and I have a lot going on. But that is brilliant. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to make a big difference on the invasion of Ukraine. Right, anyway, what were we talking about? Yeah, driftwood. So I think driftwood is wood that's come off ships or... say if like a ship was run aground or sunk, and it's just any wood that's been washed ashore.
Oh, hang on a minute. Okay. All right. How often are ships... I thought ships and running aground and shipwrecks were things of the past, Rob. They're not things that are happening frequently, are they? The ships often...
Alex, and I'm sure you're going to raise the obvious point that ships aren't built of wood anymore, but, that's not the point here. This is why driftwood is so prized.
Is it?
I've no idea, Alex. I haven't got the faintest clue.
Okay, anyway. Tell me
it's
more.
It's just wood that's been washed ashore. Anyway.
Right.
But the retired photographer said he always feared he would discover a human body during one of his regular sweeps, but was relieved to discover the victim was just a sex doll. He quickly called his partner over to take some pictures. Not sure why. Not sure if she was posing next to the sex doll. And they both left in hysterics, speculating where it come from.
Sorry. Hysterics. Sorry. I thought they were. Yeah. Okay.
I don't think that they weren't delighted that they're fine and they could take it home. So Chris at Portland Door said it was a human-like figure, but was too clean and too pretty. Now this doll didn't have a head, Alex.
Well,
so
yeah, okay.
And it did not have a head, as he said. But from its lack of a face, it was anatomically correct. So as soon as I got to,
where's this going?
Sorry.
So as soon as I got the opportunity, What? What did he do?
As soon as I got to her, I knew it was a sex doll. There we go. That's what I meant to say. I really thought he said as soon as I got to
What's to say that he didn't explore this sex doll before anybody else arrived?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, we don't know how long it took for him to call his partner over. So he does speculate, saying, it caught me by surprise, but we can only speculate where it came from. It's a busy shipping channel with loads of boats, so it could have come from one of them. Maybe a fisherman's wife found it in the cupboard and threw it overboard. Love that. I did love that detail. That's
Hang on,
nice.
But here's the most likely explanation, Rob. This sex doll belonged to him.
Yep.
He knew that however he disposed of it, as we found out last week, this could somehow end up coming back to him one way or the other. And so he needed a way of throwing any idea that this ever belonged to him. He needed to get the scent off him. So what better way to do it than to say, hey, look at what I've discovered in the sea. Wifey?
It's more than possible, Alex. I mean, also, the fact that he goes and... Alex, this quote is extraordinary that he says. So he continues about the fisherman's wife. So maybe a perverted fisherman got rid of it because he wants to clear it out and keep the head. I can only speculate why. So the fact he's already thought that maybe the fisherman has caught the head.
Rob, this is what I'm saying. I'm actually being serious with you now, right? Think about this. Why does he have to come up with all these contrived explanations for how this happened? He's making himself... Yep. I believe he went out that morning and went, Theodore, I'm going out looking for driftwood. But what he's actually got is a sack with a sex doll in it, without a head, that he then puts in the water and says, oh, look what I found. And then he's talking about these ridiculous scenarios of the perverted fisherman who cut off the head, kept the head. He's kept the head. Why has he kept the head? That's what we want to know, Rob.
Yeah, Alex, I think you're right. And the fact he goes on to say, I just chuckled and found the whole thing hilarious. I've seen dead cows, pieces of dolphin, seals, etc. walked up, but never anything like this. Dead cows? Dead cows, pieces of dolphin? Sorry, that's a bizarre quote, right? Dead cows and pieces of dolphin? Alex, this man is a serial killer. I'm going to put it on the record now. This man is a serial killer.
Hang on a minute. What the fuck are dead cows doing washing up on the beach? Are these coming from your shipwrecks that you told me about? Is this where we export? Do we export cattle on boats? And one of them runs aground. So where the fuck is the sheep? I've seen dead cows. Maybe it doesn't mean on the beach. Maybe it just means in the abattoir.
But what does it mean, pieces of dolphin?
Pieces of dolphin, Rob. What was the last thing?
Pieces of dolphins or seals.
I think there's an episode title in there. I do like it.
Yeah.
Dead cows and pieces of dolphin.
He also goes on, again, the very last thing of this story, but he says that it was a proper life-size sex doll. It looked like it had broken its shoulder joint as the right arm was bent back. But we had a giggle. She was certainly very pert indeed, and I tried to preserve her modestly in the pictures. Chris said he left the doll in situ on Chesil Beach after the find on Sunday, and it was later cleared away. I'm not sure if he cleared it away or someone else did.
But again, what we've worked out, Rob, is these people who have these silicone sex dolls, which are very expensive, as Rob and I discussed on the... You've got to go back and listen to the Patreon episode 17, isn't it, to hear about all this. But... how do you get rid of them? They're really hard things to get rid of. So somebody here in Dorset has just thrown it into the sea. You know?
Yeah.
They've discovered it. They're worried it's going to be discovered, or they feel really guilty about it or whatever, and they've driven off in the car to up onto the cliffs and just thrown it off.
Maybe they went to like, what's that?
I miss you!
Suicide Point.
Yeah. Beachy Head?
Beachy Head. Maybe they had one final fondle in the car, just threw off a Beachy Head. Who's to say, Alex? Now, look, I've got one more very, very short story. And it is from the BBC website. There's no journalist, as never is. Also from the 10th of February. The headline is, Pig in Eastington Colliery Club coaxed out with crisps.
Well, that is, pigs like crisps, everybody knows.
Yeah. A pig wandered into a working men's club and was lured outside thanks to some cheese and onion crisps. The social swine tottered into the Eastington Colliery Club in County Durham on Tuesday night after escaping from nearby allotment. After making its way around customers for a stroke, again a stroke of the pig, nothing more than that, the pig, thought to be called Roddy, God knows why, was lured back outside with crisps. Staff later put out on a Facebook appeal that the pig was claimed about 15 minutes later. The bar stewardess, Keithley Parkin, who lives above the club, said staff called her around 10 o'clock GMT saying, "I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's a pig in the bar." They told her that he'd been running around the bar and had been trying to get strokes from everyone. They got some crisps from behind the bar and lured him outside with some cheese and onions. She said that they kept Roddy in the garden at the back of the club until his owner was tracked down by a Facebook appeal. Everyone was laughing about it. It was just a bit of entertainment on a Tuesday night. That's it.
David Cameron used to refer to Boris Johnson as a greased piglet. Maybe we could lure Boris Johnson to leave Downing Street and resign with crisps.
Alex, let's face it, we know full well that the only way to lure Boris Johnson out of Parliament is with a headless sex doll.
Okay, Rob, it's time for our listener story of the week. Now, Rob, you will know that in past episodes for a long time now, I've been, for a while I was playing you sort of things that I had composed on my recorder. Sometimes it would be more ad-libbed. And then I started actually, playing songs that, you could play Lyra when she was older, dedicated to her. More recently,
Apparently
I've been playing requests. You would request a song and I would play it, note perfect. But it's become obvious to me, Rob, from listening to some of our past episodes and, when I edit them and sometimes listen back to them and all that kind of thing, I've realised, Rob, that I feel I am, what's the word? My recording playing isn't actually being truly appreciated, I do not believe. I don't know if it's by the listeners, but I've realised I only on a few listens back did I detect a mocking tone. Actually you don't, Alex, appreciate the recorder. So I'm going on strike. There's going to be no recording. There's going to be no more me playing the recorder unless the listeners ask for it. And if they don't, well, fine.
Well, I mean, first of all, Alex, that's fantastic news, obviously. And second of all, I mean, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt here because, you've maintained that for some weeks ago that you said that you had the recorder serviced and they've obviously done a substandard job. And obviously it's been playing up ever since. So maybe it's the notes you've been hitting, which apparently were note perfect, although I may speculate that may not be true. It could be down to that. So look, let's leave it up to the listeners. Okay, if they, amazingly, the past listeners have said they enjoyed the recorder, which is quite frankly astonishing. But let's leave it to them and see what happens.
Okay, right. Who's the story from?
Can I just ask, Alex, if they were to submit requests, would you be happy to play them?
I'll see.
Okay. So look, this is from Amy. It is from the Leeds Live. It's by Samuel Port from the 20th of February. The reason I wanted to cover the story about the pig is because this is very much of the same ilk. And this is Leeds man caused 999 after failing to coax swan out a busy road with baguette.
A very similar story to your last one. We had the pig. Very very similar story to the one about the pig, Rob. We had the pig and the crisps, and now it's because I said everybody knows the way to coax a pig out of a pub is with crisps. The way to coax a swan from any area really is a baguette, and if it doesn't work, you can beat them to death with the baguette. So it's handy.
Yeah, I mean, you have to make sure it's a few days old, so it's stale, because there's no point
floppy.
doing
You don't want a freshly baked floppy one, Rob.
No. So a Leeds man took swift action after a swan was seen gallivanting around a busy Leeds road. Nice use of the word gallivanting as well. Adam Bowler, 36, saw the swan outside his house and attempted to coax it out of the Glen Howe Valley Road with a baguette. Failing this, he called 999 as he was afraid the swan was in danger to itself and
hang on.
the public.
The baguette didn't work then?
No, he failed with the baguette.
I do think that he did think in his small mind that he associated, like, he thought, what are birds like? Okay, what are ducks like? Bread. I remember when I was a kid, I'd feed bread to ducks, even though you're not really meant to do that. So therefore, what shall I try and give this swan? I need bread, I've got a baguette, that'll work. Whereas actually, I'm not even sure ducks or swans really like bread all that much. The answer is, Rob, chips.
I think you've fallen into a common misconception. Chips are seagulls, Alex. Everyone knows this. Oh. So there's no guarantee that. I think it's fair to say that swans like a duck pate.
Right.
People don't realise that, but it's true. Yeah, it's true. The swan was seen roaming around the residential area around 9:40 this morning, but was stomped towards a major A road.
Well, stomping
towards a major A road.
Before you continue, Rob, did you say who this story was from? I don't believe you did.
Yeah, Amy.
Oh, sorry, Amy from Nottingham.
Yes,
with where the elves live. Cool.
Oh, well, no, not just outside Nottingham. I can never remember the exact place. I don't.
Maybe
know why.
Maybe she's in the forest. Maybe she's in the forest, Rob.
Yeah, maybe she could tell you where all the magical mythical folk live.
It's not even about magical mythical folk. It's just, I like the idea that you'd go into the woods. You'd shoot a few arrows.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a projectile, Alex. Yeah, no, absolutely. Maybe there is. Maybe there's some part of. I mean, I did. I was in Sherwood Forest for my stag do and shot a few arrows there. But
did you hit anything?
Let's brag about it. Well, a target. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like creatures. It was a target.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Amy from Nottingham. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, the bird was stomping towards a major A road, Roundhay Road. Adam said it was just confused. It obviously didn't see this kind of thing usually. It was walking down the road. It was holding up traffic. It wasn't interested in eating bread or anything. We think it was trying to find its way back to Roundhay Park. I mean, you don't know it was going to eat anything. You literally offered it one thing.
Maybe that's all he had. Rob, maybe that's all he had. A chow mein.
Yeah, okay. yeah. Who doesn't eat chow mein at 9:40 in the morning, Alex?
I think we're learning what Rob has routinely in his fridge. Chow mein, duck pate.
Yeah. I'm a classy guy, Alex. So me and another member of the public tried to offer it bread. I think it was a baguette kind of bread. I mean,
well, he thinks he can't recognise bread types. What's wrong with this man?
If you don't know what a baguette looks like, mate, you need to get out more. I tried to give it to the swan, but it just wasn't taking it. Adam said the duck seemed determined to plod along the road. It was unable to coax it out out of the street with a baguette. It eventually crossed over the road to Roundhay, and that's when he called the police. I tried to get to 111, but I couldn't get through. I don't think this
is a 999 call. If the swan. Is it? Come on, Rob. Is it a 999 call?
No, Alex. I hate to say this, but surely, this is a job for the RSPCA.
Yeah, but he was worried somebody was going to hit the swan, and that.
Yes.
Well, I mean, if that happens, that happens. But I mean, it could. I mean, it's not like a deer. A deer would go through the windscreen, could kill a person. I don't think a swan would. I don't know though. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be messy, Rob.
Alex, a police community support officer did arrive at the scene 40 minutes later, according to Adam. And then they managed to resolve the situation. He doesn't really say how they did that, though.
Rob, if it doesn't say, you know what happened, Rob. Right? If it doesn't say, you know what happened. They had to kill the swan.
The swan is dead. Yeah.
The swan is come along with a car. Come along with a car jack, and resolve the situation.
Stoved its head in, yeah. I mean, Alex, I have to say, if it was the RSPCA, they would have taken the swan away. They would have given it some accommodation, and it would be living the high life for the next. Until I don't know how long swans live for, but
yeah, how long do swans live for?
Let's have a look.
while you do that, Rob, let me bring this podcast to a close. We look forward with a mixture of eager anticipation yet trepidation to our next episode, which will be episode 358. As we move ever more forward, like me, for the first time ever, we move ever more forward like me, Rob, because I'm going to be continuing on the next Patreon episode to be travelling across Britain, Rob, reporting on the state of the modern UK via local news. So join us there on LAPodcast, an extra jab, episode 18, over on patreon.com/LAPodcast extra if you're not a member already. Rob, how long do swans live?
This is from the swansanctuary.org.uk. On average, it's 12 years out and about. In a sanctuary, they can live for 30, Alex.
Wow, that's a big difference.
Well, interesting to say. So in the FAQs, they say, in the wild world, the hazards that they have to live with, including vandals, pollution, dogs,
people waving baguettes,
overhead cables, pylons, bridges, lead poisoning, fishing attacker injuries, etc. So that's why, Alex.
But do you want a life in prison where you live double the amount you would if you were to be free?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah, exactly.
And we can't answer that question, but we have very much enjoyed your company. We're on our website, lapodcast.net. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LAPodcast. We're on Twitter @LAPodcast. We're on Spotify. We're obviously on all your podcast players. Look, we're going to be back in a week's time with LA Podcast episode 18, an extra jab over on the Patreon, where, as I say, I'm going to be continuing via local news, local papers to be reporting on the state of modern Britain, Rob. And I got some great stories coming up on that, I tell you that. And then a week after that, we're going to be back with episode 358 of the regular LA Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. See you soon. God bless.
And keep it local.
Local Anesthetic Podcast is now on Patreon, so sign up now to receive exclusive LA Podcast and extra jab bonus episodes to your inbox every month. These can't be found anywhere else, and if you want to hear them, go to patreon.com/LA Podcast Extra. More stories about stupid people doing stupid things. Teacher rushed to hospital after shoving USB cable in his penis.
No, fuck off, he didn't.
He inserted the cable to measure the length of his penis out of sexual curiosity.
What pleasure could you possibly derive from this? I mean, apart from trying it this evening.
More stupid people doing more stupid things. Parents ordered to pay 43-year-old son after getting rid of his pornography collection.
I just feel bad for the parents, because it seems like the one thing their son has managed to get right is the fact that he has a vintage pornography collection. That's the only thing going on in his life.
Well, inside the boxes were films such as Lesbians in Tight Shorts, University Co-ed 25, and 1001 Erotic Nights.
What can I see? What I'd like to know is, what was it? It was a University Co-ed 25. Did he have the whole University Co-ed series?
And of course, the strangest news stories you've ever heard.
Man left baffled after finding whole potato in his bag of kettle chips.
What?
Dr. Boyce, 38, was watching the deer's rut in Leicestershire when he felt peckish and opened a bag of crisps.
What a strange... Was he having a wank? Was he? What a strange... So what a strange thing to include in the story. So the journalist went over there. They're like, tell us what happened. He goes, well, I was watching some deers have sex out of my window.